What is up, guys? In today's video, I'm going to be going over several early game tips that hopefully will help you play better in Fortnite Chapter 7 Season 2. As always, if you guys do enjoy this video, find it helpful, informative, or interesting, remember to give it a like, subscribe if you'd like to see more, and if you guys would like to use my code in the shop when getting anything, it is EvolvedJake, just like my channel name is, and it is underneath the webcam at all times. So the first major change we have in Chapter 7 Season 2 that affects early game is going to be that each match, a player is selected to be the bus driver. And this may or may not very much change how the early game plays. You need to actually pay attention to the bus path much more now than I feel like any other Fortnite season. Normally it's something you could just look at and kind of see, okay, I'm an early drop, I'm a late drop, I'm kind of in the middle, and you could plan your drop accordingly based on that and kind of based on where you want to go. But now with a player controlling the battle bus every match, where you want to go might seem like it's going to be, an option that very quickly doesn't become an option as the player kind of swerves the bus or does something crazy with the bus. So one, you may need to have backup places or other locations that you enjoy landing at to deal with the player kind of changing the bus direction, but also you may need to jump at a different time than what you normally would have. I've had times where it seems like the bus is about to veer away from my location and I could jump right now and maybe get like an okay drop, but it wouldn't be what I prefer. But it's going to be a better drop for this POI than what's going to happen a few seconds later when the bus is like in a completely different path. So just think about where you enjoy landing and pay attention to how the bus driver is driving the bus, because you may need to change where you're landing or, jump at a different time and land differently than how you would have otherwise. When it comes to landing in Fortnite, this is something that is very unique, because the way landing works in Fortnite, or the way gliding works, is that you can open and close your glider until you reach the altitude for glider lock. And once this happens, you will no longer be able to put your glider away. And what's weird about this is the game calculates the glider lock distance from your current character's location to the ground. And the reason why this really matters is because gliding over high points like mountains or hills, or just any large elevation, can put you closer to glider lock than you would have if you avoided that location. And since once you get glider locked, you can't close your glider, gliding over mountains can really grief your drop, or gliding over tall structures can really grief your drop. But also on the alternative, gliding or diving over low points of water, or low points of elevation. One example of this is going to be water, where the ground is actually lower underneath the surface of the water, can cause you to get glider locked at a lower altitude, allowing you to hit the ground sooner. So this is something that you need to actively be thinking about when you're trying to land. A general rule is just avoid gliding over mountains, and if you are close to your POI and you're at the point where you want to get glider locked, try to dive straight down at some sort of low point, like I said, over water. That way you can get glider locked at a lower altitude and then hopefully hit the ground earlier than the players landing at the POI with you, which is going to give you a little bit of a timing advantage. Another thing that is important to keep in mind when you're landing somewhere is just going to be to try to make note of how many players land there. And you don't need to know like an exact amount of players, but just look around and see like, okay, 2 people landed here. That's going to change your game a lot, because if you know like 2 people landed at your POI, and then you hear fighting happening at the POI, you could probably just third party that, clean up the fight, and then, have the area to yourself. And other people can come in from other areas, so it's probably best to not feel too safe, even if you do think everybody is eliminated. But just the amount of people going there really affects the pacing of the POI. If there is, 20 people landing at your POI, it's going to be really hot, and you should probably play a bit slower, because the moment you get into a fight, you're going to get third partied with that many people there. But if there's not very many players there, you can play a little more loose and a little more free, and you still will have to worry about other players and third parties and things like that. But just knowing kind of the player density of your POI will help a lot. And then also where they land at your POI. If everybody landed on the other side from you, it's going to get hectic over there, and you're probably going to have a safer start to the match. But if everybody landed on your side, then you're going to have people fighting you immediately. So this is just something that you want to kind of keep track of, where people landed and how many people landed there. Also, when it comes to shooting players out of the sky, this is something that will really matter, because I love getting a good drop, landing on a gun, and then just beaming a player out of the sky and getting that free elimination before they're even able to touch the ground. But if the POI is really populated, just eliminating that one player often isn't worth it because you give up other time that you could have been looting, could have been getting shield, and could have been getting other items. But if the POI isn't very populated, like let's just say hypothetically that's the only player that goes there, shooting that person out of the sky really helps you. So that's another reason why you may or may not want to know how many people are there, because it'll kind of inform you on whether or not you should prioritize shooting people out of the sky. If there's a lot of people probably going to push you, it's not something I would want to do. And I typically prefer to land on kind of the perimeter of my POI, somewhere on the edge, because this usually reduces your chances of getting third-partied and reduces the amount of angles you have to worry about. If you're in like the back corner, you don't have to worry about the area behind you because that's not really the POI and you could see that nobody went there, right? But if there's a central spot of the POI, and you have to worry about players from 360 degrees around you the moment you hit the ground, you have less options in terms of like follow-up looting, but also you need to worry about more angles, so it's more likely you get third-partied, and the game is just going to be harder for you. So I prefer to land kind of on the edge or on the perimeter of the POI and work my way in and kind of clear as I go. That way I have to worry about less angles. When it comes to looting, obviously you want to loot and find the items you enjoy using. But oftentimes, one of the most important things to get off spawn is just going to be getting shield. Because if you are able to get shield very quickly and get an HP advantage on the other players in the area around you, that is going to be a huge deal in those early game fights. And some items might also be better for early game. For example, I kind of prefer the Iron Pump shotgun or the Chaos Reloader shotguns. But I may be more inclined to use the Twin Hammer shotguns off spawn if I haven't found a suitable spray weapon yet, or if I just have no spray weapon in general. Let's say the only weapon I have is the Twin Hammers and the Iron Pump. I would much rather use the Twin Hammers in that situation because they kind of go better with no spray weapon. And in early game, you often have less kind of options and less freedom of choosing what you actually want to use. So I think being familiar with as many different items in the loot pool will help you in these situations because you kind of just have to use what you get sometimes. But also you may need to deviate from what you actually prefer if the game is going that way. When it comes to early game looting, I'm also mostly worried about just getting a decent setup, getting my HP in a decent spot, and then getting ready to fight, rather than actually looting and going around and making sure I have every single exact item that I enjoy using. I care more about getting ready and clearing the POI than I do having the loadout I actually want. I would rather clear the POI and then get what I want afterwards, or kind of loot every little thing that I actually need, than loot everything I need and then miss out on timing to, you know, third party a fight, clean up the area, whatever is going on. So my main priority is getting decent loot in terms of just being ready to fight and then clearing the POI, rather than making sure I have every single piece of loot in the area and things of that nature. Preferred item slots can also really help when it comes to early game. This is a setting in Fortnite you can change where you select certain items to go to certain inventory slots. So for me, I always put my shotgun slot 1. And so I have that set up in the preferred item slots. That way, if I just grab a bunch of loot off spawn, my shotgun should go into slot 1. It is Fortnite at the end of the day, so not everything works perfectly as it should at all times, but that preferred item slot setting can be really helpful for early game. When it comes to your POI, you want to learn the important spawn locations, and things that are going to be important are going to be things like barrels. These slurp barrels will give you health and shield, and if you land at a spot that has a lot of barrels and you can just break one floor tile and get a bunch of health, that is going to accelerate your early game and give you a timing advantage on other players. And as I said, getting HP quick is important. This season at the pizza shops, there's usually pizza just sitting on the counter, and landing at that can allow you to immediately get full health, full shield, and you have extra slices to carry, which is the fastest healing item in the game. So if you are landing at a POI with a pizza shop, that can be something that's really important to know. Car spawns at the POI is another thing that is beneficial to know. This is probably more so for when you're getting ready to leave. If you know where the cars spawn, you can just quickly check all that. If there's any sort of like objectives in your POI, this is also something that's important to learn and kind of remember. I didn't know what to word this, but things like the steaks at Riptides, right? If you eat the steaks at Riptides, you're able to lift the weight faster, and then that gives you a high rarity weapon. It has a chance to give you the mythic Iron Pump shotgun. Recently, we had vaults added at Frigid Fortress and New Sanctuary, so learning where the cards can spawn, that way you can get access to the vault, can help you a lot. And there's a bunch of other mini games around the map, like the shooting game at Wonky Land, the race at Sandy Strip. There's learning these things at the POIs that you go to, if there is any, is something that can be really helpful. in addition to knowing where the barrels and the pizza spawn, learning where the cars spawn, and then also just any sort of like loot dense rooms or loot dense buildings. And on the flip side of this, knowing which areas aren't loot dense. If there's like only one chest spawn in an entire building, it's probably not going to be worth going for. But if there's a building that has like 5 chest spawns and barrels, that's probably going to be one of the ideal spots to land at the POI, especially if it is on the edge. So not only is knowing this going to help you when it comes to looting, but it also may help you make a better choice in terms of which actual building you want to land at the POI. And then the final thing I want to talk about is going to be the bounty system, because this was added this season. And personally, I don't feel like this really affects early game too much. There's times where players get a bounty on me, and this would be, if someone gets a bounty on you, you want to pay attention to it and kind of make note of it. When someone gets a bounty on you, if they're close enough, they'll be like marked and you'll see like a live ping of where they are. If they're at your POI, that's really helpful to know. But if they're across the map, the odds of them rushing you off spawn are quite low. It can happen, but it's unlikely. And so a lot of times I'll be at Riptides and get a bounty on someone that's at like Battlewood, New Sanctuary, things like that. I usually don't worry about too much, and I just play my early game as I would normally. But if I get a bounty on somebody who's at the POI, or maybe they're at the nearby gas station and they just got it right there, that might be somebody who's going to rush me right away. So that is something that is important to pay attention to, but I don't feel like it's impacting early game as much as some players make it out to. And finally, when I talked about learning important spawn locations for your POI, another thing you want to learn is important spawn locations for around your POI. And the reason why this can really matter is if there is a mini game nearby you want to take advantage of. There's rifts around the map because of the 0 point shards. If there's a 0 point shard near where you enjoy landing, that would be something you want to take advantage of. The purple water in the desert, if you're landing near there, that might be something you want to take advantage of. And then also vending machines and rivalry boards. So each POI has vending machines, I'm pretty sure, where you can spend gold for items. But there's also several vending machines near POIs, especially at the gas stations. And so if you loot your POI and you check your vending machines and you don't have what you want, you might want to go to those nearby vending machines and then check those as well. And the same is true with rivalry boards, because at these rivalry boards, you can buy high rarity weapons, you can upgrade your weapons. And one of the potential things you can buy is going to be the 7 power gloves. So if I loot my POI and don't have the 7 power gloves yet, I'm checking the rivalry board at my POI, and I'm checking the rivalry boards around my POI to hopefully be able to purchase some gloves. And that's kind of my goal from that point on. If I don't have gloves, is to visit the rivalry boards until I can purchase them, or until I run into an enemy that has them. And so learning that stuff, I don't really like you need to learn it or memorize it, because they do show it on the map, but just being in the habit of rotating to those things, if you are missing important pieces of your inventory, can be something that really helps you. But that is going to be it for this video. As always, if you guys did find this to be helpful, informative, or interesting, remember to give it a like, subscribe if you would like to see more, and I will see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching.